All right. So, how's the levels? Everything seem good? How's everyone doing today? I'm just gonna do a little bit of an intro. So, stragglers, anybody that's wanting to join, doesn't feel like they have to make it right at the very start. Anyways, how's everybody's week going so far? Hopefully it's going well. I had a pretty long weekend, but it was pretty good. I helped a neighbor out for some of it and busted my finger up pretty well. But it's not like I need to type to code, so it'll be fine. Okay, so let's give it one more minute. All right, well, we will jump into this. So first, I hope that everyone has enjoyed what will, by tomorrow, it might actually be Tuesday before I release it, but my very first little mini class that I made, it was just on containers as a whole, and so I hope that you guys ended up liking that. I know it was a very easy and simple introduction class, and I plan on actually making a lot more advanced ones in the future, but this was my first foray into making a class. It was set up as a class. And so anyways, I wanted to start with material that was simple before I get into the harder material. And so we're going to kind of work our way up. The other reason I went with the simple class was that it allows me to point back to it. So if somebody starts a class that's too hard and they don't understand, I can always point them back. Instead of if I did it in vice versa, I can't really point them back if the material is too difficult. So I wanted to start from the very beginning, and over the next couple of years, continue to expand on more niche and more complicated as well as more advanced classes. That being said, the last one is releasing tomorrow, or maybe Tuesday. It was meant to go out tomorrow, but I decided to make some changes, but that doesn't matter. That being said, I have been working on my second class, which is on Kubernetes, and I actually want your guys' feedback. First, on how the first class was as in general, and two, I'm going to actually share with you guys a Google Doc on the second class, and I want your feedback on if there's something that you guys would like that's not in there, if there's something that I'm missing, or if maybe you just want a different order. So there should be a link after this to this document. If you want to go in there, you should be able to leave comments. I won't let you edit. Not that I don't trust you guys, but there could be a bad actor. Anyways, so we can go ahead and look over this really quickly if you like. Let's go ahead and jump over there now. And so this is kind of the class. Now, if you realize my last class was only, I think, 5 or 6, depending on how you look at it. And this one itself is going to be quite a few more. So it's 30 lessons altogether. Another thing that I want to point out is these with asterisks here are actually, I have been playing around with this Kata code and making self-contained lab environments, which I think is really cool and will allow you to do the lab along with the lesson. So I'm putting a ton of work into this. I would love your feedback, if you have some, on what you guys would like to see and how I could make these lessons awesome. So anyways, this is what it is. Remember, each lesson I'm trying to hold to about 10 minutes or less, just so they're small little chunks. So anyways, keep that in mind. If you have any ideas, want to contribute, please feel free to leave comments here for me. All right, let's move on. I wanted to point this guy out, Devoops World. This guy is fantastic. He releases a lot of really awesome content in Telegram. He has like a Telegram channel. And so if you want to stay up to date with DevOps and just want a semi-constant feed of articles and whatnot, he has actually provided me with quite a few interesting articles that I have really enjoyed reading. So I'll leave a link to his Telegram. And anyways, yeah, I've really appreciated his, I would even say mentorship. He has mentored me several times. Really like the guy. Nice guy. Let's move on to the real news that I know all of you came here to see. AMD did release a security patch. I know that I like to go over security. We won't stay long on it. It's basically a security vulnerability in their secure encrypted virtualization. And yeah, probably doesn't matter unless if you support an OS, so where you're going to have to do things to mitigate this. But there has been a vulnerability, so if you do, check this out. Also, you know where there's down like right here, where the big spinning in is? I really want to put some like interactive content there. So if you have an idea, let me know. Maybe we could throw chat in there. Not sure. That's something for you guys to think about. All right. As the title of this stream says, Internet Explorer has finally died. I know we don't really cover web browsers here, but everyone knows the notorious, nefarious even Internet Explorer. I'm kind of sad to see it go because, like, it's so easy to blame it for so much and to pick on it. So I'm kind of sad to see it go, but it is going away. So Microsoft Edge is the way forward, which, did you know that you can run Edge on Linux? I did not know this until I was looking up this. And you can actually run Linux or Edge on Linux. I haven't done it. I've had no reason to. But you can. All right, let's move on. Google had a large swath of releases. I tried to pick out the ones that were most interesting to me, hopefully most interesting to you. There was like 1,000. So I picked my favorite 2. That was Vertex AI. This actually looks really, really cool. And it is basically their competitor to Cubeflow, even though they have a Cubeflow deployment. So Vertex AI is all about scaling your ML models and doing some custom tooling with a unified AI platform. I haven't gotten to dig into this yet, but as soon as I do, I'll probably release a video on it. It looks really cool, and I'm interested to actually understand it better. I think this was probably the largest thing that I saw here in their release of everything from Android 12 to this. So anyways, as you can see, it supports all the open source frameworks that you might want, just like Cubeflow. I'm actually wondering if it's maybe powered on Cubeflow and it's just a little bit more custom Cubeflow deployment. Not sure. We're going to have to dig into it later. That being said, they actually also released Lambda, which is confusing and probably wasn't a great name because you think of AWS Lambda functions, but that's not what this is at all. Lambda is their conversation technology. So if you're thinking of GDMT3, which was the big one that was released, Lambda is kind of that for Google. Now, I have not actually seen how well it works, if it is as good as that, but that is basically what they're stating it is. So this is something we're definitely going to have to try out and use in the future, because I'd love to see if it works that well. AWS had a few releases, but they were not nearly as exciting, at least in my eyes. There is a migration service for lift and shift migrations. I thought this was interesting. If you don't know what a lift and shift migration is, it's definitely worth a read in that regard, at least. But basically, if you're trying to move to AWS, AWS is providing more and more tools to help you migrate your stuff to AWS, so it's worth checking out if you're looking at moving to it. And something that they said was coming soon, which I thought was really cool, is their G4 AD instances. Now, I'm thinking about releasing an Amazon EC2 instance naming schema, because it's actually really confusing. Like, what does an A mean? What does a G mean? A G means that it is a ARM-based processor. You would think an A would mean that, but it's a G, so be careful about that. A GAD is a AMD graphics card for some reason. So anyways, AMD GPUs are being released. Generally, the AMD stuff is cheaper than the Intel stuff. And this is why I tell people when you're doing it like a T3, don't do the T series. The T4As are cheaper, or T5As, whatever the A category is I think it's T3A. Anyways, T3A is cheaper than the T2s. So there's no reason, cheaper and faster. So there's no reason to ever run with a T2 anymore. Just run the T3s unless if you need the Intel for some reason. But it's still AMD 64. Anyways, that's beyond the scope of this. Unless you guys want to have conversations about the different EC2 instances that are out there, because there are a lot and it's sometimes overwhelming. All right, this is for all of you Linux users that are out there. This was a big one for me. I have always used Bitwarden. Now, my brother actually works for Onepass, and he's always taken it as a personal front that I use Bitwarden. But for me, no password manager actually works on Linux until a couple of days ago. And now OnePassword actually works officially for Linux. It doesn't support all of the features that you'd get on Windows or Mac, not yet, but they're working very hard to add those things in. So it's definitely worth checking out and seeing what they've added so far. And I'm going to actually try. So anyways, I'm going to try switching for a little while. I might even do a review later on this year if I decide to switch. But if you are a Onepass user and use Linux, it now is supported. This I found interesting, and I actually did more research on this than I previously meant to, and this was there's been some open source turmoil in Freenode. Freenode is one of the largest IRC server networks out there, and it's under new management, and the new management actually has given a lot to open source. And this is actually what I thought was a really good article, because I completely agree. Some of the things that the people say that are really upset with it just don't seem to add up. And so anyways, I thought it was worth a read. I'll leave it out there for you guys, and you can do your own research into it. All right, here is some SUSE news. So this is called Closing the Gap. So SUSE has been working SUSE has been working on what they call closing the gap, and I will get to Bitwarden in just a second, your Bitwarden comment. Thank you, by the way, for joining Nova. I appreciate it. It's good to have you here. Bitwarden, or you said Bitwarden. I can't read and talk at the same time. Closing the leap gap. So OpenSUSE, I've been meaning to cover more of them. I previously worked for them. I do not speak for them. In fact, as I usually try to make a statement, nothing I say here should reflect on my current, past, or future employers. This is my personal channel and my personal beliefs and my personal content. Actually, let me zoom that. Sorry, that was really far away. So anyways, that being said, I did work for SUSE a while, and so I know what they're doing a lot, and the closing the leap gap has been going on for a long time. But what it is basically Leap and their SLES, or their SUSE Enterprise Linux, have always been these two different distributions with basically two whole different backend package sources. And what they've been trying to do, for about 8 years now, is to actually bring those two together so it was easier to move from Leap to SLES. And if something works on SLES, it should work on Leap. And it's actually coming to fruition finally 8 years later, and it has taken a lot of work. Now, that being said, since we're on SUSE, we have another SUSE-related release. But I agree that the Bitwarden being held in a Docker container, which is empirical, always drags you. I actually use Bitwarden in their cloud, and I've actually always enjoyed that. So I've never actually had that problem. Nova. But I do appreciate your comment, and feel free to talk about more of this stuff as we're talking about it, because I'd love to just have a conversation with you guys as we're going. So this is another thing that was released, and this is Harvester Beta. So Harvester is from Rancher, which is now SUSE, and Harvester is basically a HCI solution for Kubernetes. Now, if you don't know what HCI is, think OpenStack. OpenStack is a good example of an HCI, or a hyper-converged infrastructure is what HCI stands for. And Harvester looks to do this as Kubernetes as a base. Now, I think that personally it might have some problems. I don't know that this is, I think this is one of those times when Kubernetes is being overused, but it's interesting to follow and watch and see how they're doing. It's actually a cool project. I'm just saying that I don't know that it necessarily is going to be the HCI solution going forward, but maybe it will be. Maybe I'll be wrong. If I am wrong, I will be happy to be wrong. For me, Kubernetes is just not a thing to manage your infrastructure with. Well, Nova, if you follow this channel, you will know of all of these interesting things, like SUSE buying Rancher. They did this. I mean, it started last summer, and the final closing of Rancher was last fall around Thanksgiving. I only remember that is because when the acquisition finally happened, SUSE tried to lay off most of the people that worked for them in the United States, and then the people they didn't lay off actually then ended up quitting. So I remember quite well when they did this. But I do try to track most of the interesting news around the open source and a lot around the Kubernetes. So do stay around if you like that type of news. But yes, Rancher is now part of SUSE as of last Thanksgiving. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, they're building this. It looks kind of cool. It is kind of cool. I have actually run it, and yeah, check it out. All right, so for all of us who do machine learning, and actually I have 2 videos that I'm working on simultaneously about machine learning. So your next Cubeflow video, for all of you that like my Cubeflow videos and have been waiting for one, is coming here soon. This dataset is basically a way to label large amounts of data with minimal human effort. So it's basically an AI to help build your AIs, which is actually really cool. And if you've ever actually tried to generate a large data set of high quality data to train your AI, you'll think that this is really awesome. I haven't used it yet. Maybe we will in the future. I saw it. It looked cool. NVIDIA released it, and I might try it. A lot of you guys know Audacity. Audacity was actually just acquired by Muse. I'm not sure if I covered that. I don't cover a whole lot about Audacity, but I relate to the problem that they're having here because working in open source, I've seen people have this problem. Basically, Muse has no tracking data on Audacity. How many users use Audacity? How many use what feature? It doesn't know. And Muse tried to add these to the open source project, and a lot of people are dropping the F word. And that stands for fork because this is a PG stream. But that being said, they're talking about forking the project because they don't like Muse doing that. I get where Muse is coming from. Where do you put your time and effort into a project, and especially an open source project, when you don't know how users are using it? And you can do polls and things like this, but I've done polls and people don't really respond to polls that often. So anyways, something to think about. If you use Audacity, check it out. Join the fight. All right, this is really cool from GitHub. I know I always releasing something from GitHub, but they released a flat data for GitHub Action. So this is kind of a cool thing that you might want to check out if you like to build Git scraping. So basically you're scraping stuff into Git, and what this does, flat data allows you to do this on a GitHub Action. So you don't have any infrastructure that is scraping data. You just have a GitHub Action that runs periodically. You can set when your GitHub Action runs, and it makes a commit and commits that to your repository if there's a difference in things. So it goes out, it scrapes it, it brings it back, and it does a diff on the data. And if the data is different, it makes a commit. So basically, it just is an automatic way to do Git scraping, and it's actually really cool. All right, I highly agree with. So Nova said, I highly agree with Kate's not being a tool to manage infrastructure with. However, I'm fairly new to this, and what would be the mindset to follow when working with Kate apart from your infrastructure? So, I mean, for me, you want to take Kubernetes as what it is. It's a container scheduler. Now, you can add stuff on top of that and whatnot, but you want Kubernetes to do what it was designed to do. Most things are designed to do a thing and do it well, and that is to schedule containers. I know that it's nice to use the same tool to do a bunch of different things, and I kind of even abuse that rule a little bit with things like GitOps. But for the most part, I think that actually holds to it. It Git versions things. I just use it for a little bit more than just code. And so I would generally say that is the same principle I use for Kubernetes and things like that. Anyways, check it out. It looks really cool. I haven't actually used it yet, but I actually want to because this is something that I actually currently do, and this looks like a much better approach to doing it. All right, while we're on GitHub, they made an artifact exporter and they open sourced it. So now not only can you use it, but you can actually see how they interact with their API. If you don't know, GitHub words are hard, sorry. GitHub uses a Graph AI API, so it's not a REST API like you think, or a gRPC even. It's a Graph API, and so it's actually really interesting to use if you've never used one before, and it's a really great place to start learning. So their CLI tool is open source for this exporter, and so it's a great place to, if you're looking to open up a project and learn Graph API and how to use it in a client. Here you can do that. But not only that, it's actually a really cool tool in itself. You can export whatever data you want from your GitHub project. So that could be, you could back up issues or comments or things like that. And it allows you to do it in either CVS, CSV, or JSON. And it allows you to do it from the command line. So you could even automatically do this with some, like a bash script or something like that. All right, as you guys know, I love Rust. Rust released a 2018 edition, and the Rust working group is releasing a 2021 edition. If you don't know what the editions of Rust are, basically this is where they allow for a little bit of breaking changes. So they don't happen very often. It's been 5 years since the last one. And you can set the edition in your code, and I can show you guys how to do that. And it looks like they're going to do that again. Now, I didn't get to go over exactly all of them, and they're not actually set exactly all of the ones that they want. Some of it is around async and await. And yeah, anyways, they do automated migrations, so you guys don't really have to worry about your migrations. It's when there was the 2018 edition, it was all automated from my little project and worked quite flawlessly without a whole lot of effort. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But it does allow them to add new things. So it's actually really good. That's why I bring it up. I would actually encourage you to read over all this. I actually might do, you know how I do my Kubernetes release notes? I might actually do a Rust Editions release notes. If you guys would be interested, let me know in the comments or in the chat if you would be interested in that. And I might go ahead and throw that as one of the things and actually go over all this. I read through it lightly. Some of the things sounded interesting. I'm not sure exactly how they would all fit to the code, so I could make a whole video out of that. And, you know, how it would change things. All right, so here comes some stuff from Lyft. So if you don't know some of the open source things that Lyft has done, Envoy is one of the big things that they have released to the open source community and is a really cool tool. But they've also released Clutch. I haven't actually used Clutch, but the little bit I looked over it this week looked pretty cool. And the reason I was looking over it was their a blog post on chaos engineering where they use Clutch and Envoy proxy in their Kubernetes cluster to do chaos engineering. And if you don't know what chaos engineering is, it's basically where you engineer chaos in your applications, in your services, and use that to effectively understand what happens when random strange things happen in your cluster. I had mentioned to you guys there's I think it's called Chaos Mesh. That's a Kubernetes project that does some of the same things. And there's a few other ones that I can't think of off the top of my head, but we can go through those again if you guys would like. Leave me a comment and I'll make sure to have the list for you next week's news on some of the chaos engineering tools for Kubernetes. Anyhow, yeah, so this is a really cool blog article about how they used Envoy proxy and whatnot to do chaos engineering in their Kubernetes cluster. Very good read. All right, DDR5, PCI 5 is all coming out later this year. I'm thinking about doing a PC build. If I can afford it later this year, would that be an interesting video? I know there's a lot of people that do PC builds, but if I'm building a PC, I've been doing more video editing with this channel and everything, and I don't have a video editing machine, so I'm thinking about doing it. And if you guys would like to, I'll do the work to make a video on it. Yeah, actually, that's a interesting concept to benchmark your cluster using chaos engineering and understanding. And I mean, chaos engineering is a great way of understanding how certain things happen and how the load is handled inside your Kubernetes cluster and your infrastructure and things like your database. Yep. This is a really fantastic podcast that is being done by GitHub. And I'm actually a little bit jealous. I would love to do this podcast. Actually, eventually, that's kind of what I've wanted to do in this news section in the end. I started doing some interviews with companies. I actually have said from the start that I want to interview some open source engineers, their motivation for working in open source. So hopefully you'll see some of the same content from here once I can get some people on board with me. But that's what they're doing, and I think that's really cool. So I'd love for you guys to check out this README podcast, which is all about open source engineers and their work in open source, why they do it, and what they do. So I think that's really cool, and I would love for you guys to check it out. So yeah, go ahead. It's there. And the very last one, this is awesome. I love Cloudflare. They come out with a lot of great stuff. They generally take a really good stance from my point of view on issues, and reCAPTCHAs and CAPTCHAs are one of those, and they're looking to try to get rid of it. Now, I think this makes complete sense. I browse a web page much differently than a robot does. Now, I know you'll say that you could maybe try to imitate how it does, but I don't think that you could make a robot imitate how I browse a web page. And so, that being said, they are trying to get rid of CAPTCHAs, and they're first doing it with YubiKeys. If you don't know what a YubiKey is, I probably have said this several other streams, but you should know what a YubiKey is and the likes. But they're basically USB encryption devices that store your identity, that prove who you are, and help you with things like that. They're going to first do it with YubiKeys, and they are then going to do it with a bunch of other things without tracking individuals. That being said, they came up with this interesting stat that I thought was pretty cool, that about 500 years per day are wasted on CAPTCHAs from humanity. That's way more than I expected it to be. All right, so that is about it for me today, guys. Thank you guys for joining. I love it when you guys come out and join in like this. I hope that this is what you guys would like to see. If it's not what you guys would like to see, I have a Discord. I will link it as soon as this is done. But I also have a Twitter account, so use either one of those and tweet at me or join the Discord and let me know the things you'd like to see that I'm missing. I have about 50 to 100 links by the end of the week that I sort through and try to bring the best ones to you guys. And so if I'm missing some or there's something that is more interesting to you guys, please let me know. Again, also, I want to encourage you to take a look at that Google document that I'm going to share. It's my next class that I'm releasing on Kubernetes. So I would love for your guys' input. If there's anything missing that you just don't understand that you think would be good for an introductory class to Kubernetes, I'm putting in a ton of work on it. If you notice, my icons and everything are getting better as we go because I'm putting a little bit more work. I've got like 850 subscribers, which is outstanding. I didn't actually believe that I would have this many by this time. And so, yeah, I'm putting in a lot of work on this Kubernetes class to bring a lot more of that type of stuff. So I would love it if you guys gave me some of your feedback. Check out my previous course. I know it's really an introductory course, but let me know what you liked and what you didn't like. I think it's, as long as it's helpful information, it's fine to be critical. There's a nice way of being critical. You don't have to be mean about you know, my hair or forehead wrinkles. I'm a little sensitive about them. But you can definitely let me know how I could get the information over better to you guys so that I can make this Kubernetes class as helpful as possible to you guys. That being said, thank you so much for joining. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week. And yeah, let me know if there's more or interesting things you'd love to see covered in the news, and I would love to cover it for you guys. I will see you guys next week. Have yourselves a fantastic week. Yeah, I'll see you guys next week.